My name is Jon Uriarte. I'm from Hondarribi, from a little town in the Basque Country in the north of Spain. I'm an artist, curator, and teacher as well. I have my own practice. I teach photography. I've been part of Parallel, of this program for emerging artists and curators. I've been chosen to curate an exhibition which is titled Currents Shift here in the Château in Toulouse. When I started to do some research on the venue and on the history of Le Château, and I found out that this institution has been exhibiting photography since the 70s, and before that it was like distributing and sharing water. So I thought that water and photography could be like great subjects to work with. Le Château has been working on the modernist era with water, and nowadays with photography. I thought that could be interesting also to propose an exhibition on those two topics. The exhibition is divided in the three spaces of the venue. In the ground floor of the tower, you have the work of Lukasiewicz and Garrett Grove. Marie is a French artist and Garrett is an American artist. This floor revolves about the ocean mainly, and Garrett's work looks at the ocean from above, let's say, and from the coast of the ocean, and how the coast of the ocean and the sea has been used by our society. And Marie's work talks about the underwater, about the coral. No? Her work talks about how are we making profit of coral and exploiting it, and she uses for that like a staged photography that reminds to advertisement photography. So that's a mix of like documentary photography by Garrett Grove, looking at the ocean from above, and the work like the staged photography of Marie Lukasiewicz, looking at the coral with these advertisement-looking images. In the underground floor, you have the work of Diogo Bento and Dries Lips. Diogo is a Portuguese photographer based in Cabo Verde, and Dries is a Belgian photographer. Their work is much more related to science, to how science deals with truth, and also how science deals with water and climate change. Diogo has been working with researchers of two laboratories of Cabo Verde who are monitoring the climate change and how the climate change is affecting both the water and also the atmosphere. And his work, it has many layers, because it includes some like documentary looking images, but you don't really know if they are documentary images or not. It includes some cell phone snapshots taken to verify if the machines of the scientists are working well or not. Those kind of pictures that you take to the Wi-Fi password. And it includes also some very small images of the plankton that the scientists had taken and had identified with artificial intelligence software. So those three layers on Diogo's work. And on the middle of the underground floor, it's the work of Dries Lips, that he's been working with a subject which is an ice sphere, which is the most difficult, one of the most difficult shapes to create, because it's a big ice sphere that is melting. So he's been using different methods to document this ice sphere, how the water comes from the ice. He's been taking photos, doing 3D scans, printing 3D sculptures of these 3D scans. So it talks about how the limits of the image to document and to represent some shapes. For instance, this ice sphere. And the third chapter, the third space, includes both the garden and the second gallery. It's formed by the work of Jessica Wolfelsperger, who is a Swiss photographer, and Cihad Caner, who is a Turkish artist. Their work is much more focused, in this case, in photography and how photography works nowadays, once that internet and the social media is all around us. Jessica's work talks about how social media has transformed photography in a very similar way, and it's very homogeneous. Everybody takes almost the same pictures, the same selfies, and the same portraits, and the same like food images, let's say, and how this can be dangerous or at least uncanny in some sort of way. And Cihad's work revolves around it has two subjects, two monsters that are made by the images, by how those homogeneous images at the end create like a ghetto. And if you don't make the images in this way that social media and internet pushes you to make, at the end you become in some sort of like a monster because you don't take part on that society of images. So it's a very, very related proposal. And Jessica's images are also in the garden because at the end nowadays social media, Instagram, Facebook, all those online spaces are public spaces. No? And we thought that it could be really interesting to make this comparison of the public online sphere and the public sphere here in the garden. First thing with the publication is the work of Carles Murillo, who is the designer. I'm very, very grateful to Carles because he's an amazing designer, and he's done a really wonderful work with the design of the catalog. We worked together on the whole idea of the publication, trying to keep the same content and ideas that are on the show. We divided the publication in three chapters that start with a text, which is the same that happens in the show. You have a text at the beginning of each of the three spaces, and then each chapter is divided, or includes the works of the two artists of each space on the show, and it's also placed on the same way as, on a similar way the pictures are in the show. So it's related. It's not exactly the same theme, of course, because this is a printed matter and you cannot do the same thing, and you don't need to do the same thing, but we try to keep the same ideas. Besides that, it has this feeling of something like fluid, something that it's like the shape reminds to something that it's maybe aquatic as well. So as water is so important for this show, we wanted to have this feeling. And also we try to have as many pictures as possible of each artist, because as I said, the two topics of the show are water and photography. So it was really, really important as well to have as many photos as possible. And finally, there's all this idea of like having half images, or images that go from one page to the next page, because this idea of like the flow, it's really important for the whole show. No? You can hear many times nowadays talking about liquid photography, for instance. So that's one of the terms and the ideas that we wanted to keep on the publication. Yeah, I'm really happy with the result, and mostly with the work that Carles Murillo, the designer, has done with it. I'm really happy with this as well. Yeah. But for me, it was important also to try to propose new ways of mixing different works. It was challenging also to use the whole institution, to use the second gallery and the tower and the garden as well. I'm really happy with the result.